Okay, look, it's getting written about, and you and I talked about it last week a little bit and said this is probably fantasy. But as long as it's getting written about, we're going to talk about it.
I don't know. I'm not sure what you're going to say. I have an idea, and if this thing is still being batted around, all right, go ahead.
Well, what do you suspect?
Is it baseball or basketball?
Baseball.
Come on.
Yep.
Are people seriously thinking that Pirates are going to trade Paul Skenes?
This morning, Jim Bowden wrote a story about Paul Skenes. Pirates don't want to trade Paul Skenes, but they'd have to weigh these 5 prospect packages. Pirates have no plans on trading Paul Skenes. That's what they're saying publicly, though their general manager, Ben Cherington, and what they're making clear through their general manager, Bob Carrington, they're making clear. Let me start this again. That's what they're saying publicly through their general manager, Ben Cherington, and what they're making clear to other teams behind the scenes. But that doesn't mean they won't listen to inquiries and perform their due diligence in case they're overwhelmed by a franchise-changing offer. There you go. Spit it out, Doug. Skenes isn't making any money. They got the second worst record in the National League. Their plan is to stay the course with him. He's a dominant pitcher, 2.10 ERA over 34 starts. They know that with this ownership group, they'll never commit the $350 to $400 million it would likely take to keep Skenes. So, look, I mean, he writes about it, okay?
Uh-huh.
So if he writes about it, we're going to talk about it.
All right.
Do you think the Tigers are one of the teams that would offer a package for Paul Skenes?
Sure.
Well, you are correct. According to Jim Bowden, proposed package. Tigers would send Max Clark, shortstop Bryce Rayner, right-handed pitcher Jaden Ham, and right-handed pitcher Owen Hall. Those 4 for Paul Skenes.
That's it?
I mean, I look at this and say yes 1,000 times from Detroit's perspective.
Well, he's a free agent 2030, right? That's 5 years.
Yep.
So I hate even discussing this because it's a BS article. It's complete BS because even he acknowledges they're not trading. Everyone's saying they're not trading. Even behind the scenes, they're not trading. So what it is it's somebody writing an article that says, well, I thought on my own, it'd be interesting what teams could offer. Even though they're not going to trade him. Okay, here's what they could offer.
But here's the premise. If they're willing to pick up the phone, okay, and he's going on that premise, could an offer be made that they can't refuse? And I think the answer to that is yes. If they're willing to listen, how do you blow their doors off with a trade offer to get Paul Skenes? And I think the only way you do that is you offer them somebody like a Riley Green. Like if I'm Pittsburgh, if I'm a Pittsburgh fan, if this is 97 won the ticket in Pittsburgh and Yins are listening,
right?
I'm asking for Riley Green, Max Clark, Bryce Rayner.
Because you want to get something now.
Because I want to get something now and something to make it worthwhile to give up this cornerstone piece that everybody covets. That might make it a quick no. Like Detroit would say no to that. They're not giving up Riley Green. And if that's the cost, that's fine. The cost should be something like that, in my opinion.
Who were the pitchers? Jaden Hammond. Who was the other one?
Owen Hall. He's a top 10 prospect. He's at A-ball. I think is he at West Michigan? I think he's at West Michigan. But so you'd be giving up your number 1 prospect, your number 3 prospect, your number 7 prospect, and your number 9 prospect, according to these are MLB rankings of the Tiger prospects.
Yeah, Owen Hall has pitched in 4 games in his minor league career at this point, 19 years old. But yeah, so he's a rookie like Rayner's a rookie. Mm-hmm. Here's another big issue. Like, you're right, 100%. You would think if you're going to be Pittsburgh and you're asking for something in return, you want players that can help you right now, which is the reason why Pittsburgh's not going to make this trade. Because what Pittsburgh has is an absolute stud that you build around, and you have him for 5 more years before you have to pay him, free agent money. And at that point, if you're not going to, trade him in 4 years from now. That's when you trade him. Yeah. In the meantime, what you're doing, because you suck as an organization, at least in the major league level, What you're doing is taking advantage of the draft with higher draft picks over the last couple of years and into the future for the next couple of years. That's what the Tigers were trying to do. And then you get this group of players that hopefully you're willing, you're at some point you're ready to move forward with all these young players that they're realizing some of that talent. But so you're not trading Paul Skenes.
Well, there's a couple variables here. And again, we're talking about this because it's getting written about, and the Tigers were mentioned, and we'd be foolish not to talk about, okay, how do you is this even in the ballpark of reality? Are we crashing through the guardrails here? But I think even if you were willing to trade, I think you would say we're not trading him. I think you'd say that. We don't want to trade Paul Skenes. We're not open for business. But if you take phone calls, your behavior would dictate otherwise. Two is, and this is always a question that I don't know the answer to, there are those pitching delivery experts that talk about percent chance of this delivery resulting in injury. And I would like to see what those people think of the percent chance that Skenes' delivery is an injury risk.
Because you don't want him to be the next Strasburg.
Yeah, and we go back to, well, with us, it was Fulmer, right? Remember when Fulmer was winning Rookie of the Year, and there was talk of him trading, and I had a source in the game that said I'd trade him, and I said I wouldn't, and he said it's his delivery, he's an injury risk, and sure enough, he was. That doesn't mean you're going to get injured. It just is. Some deliveries are more prone to injury risk, and I would like to I wonder what the analysis of that says.
Yeah, you're a pitcher at an elite level. You're going to get hurt. Everyone does. It happens. It's you can't predict when it's going to happen. You just know what's going to happen because that's the nature of doing what you do. Mm-hmm. But yeah, to your point, you'd like to have those assurances that okay, it's not going to be delivery related or whatever, or that you're taking this as a smarter chance. Look, Paul Skenes is one of the best pitching prospects we've seen in baseball in a long time, and hit the ground running as a rookie last year was phenomenal. And he's pitching well again this year. He's almost as dominant as he was last year, which is hard to duplicate. But this is where he's at to start his career, light years ahead of what Justin Verlander it was to start his career. This is a guy that's like, when I said Strasburg type, or Kerry Wood type, right? Hit the ground running spectacularly fast, but those guys flamed out early because of injuries. And that's what you hope that you're not going to get with him. To your point, that's why you look at those things.
Yep.
But again, if you put yourself in Pittsburgh's shoes, this trade doesn't seem to work. I mean, look, I love Max Clark. I love Bryce Rayner. They're at single A ball.
Yep.
One's at Lakeland, the other's at West Michigan. Now, are they playing well? Yes, they are. And both were likely to get a promotion the next month or two to move up to high A and to double A. What?
Remember I asked you about a month ago that I'm going to be in Grand Rapids on a weekend coming up in late June. And I said, what are the odds I'm going to see Max Clark play for West Michigan? You said they're pretty good.
Month or two, I said.
Yeah, if he gets called up, he gets called up.
Do
I want to see him play? Yes, I want to see him play.
Not called up because promoted is what happened.
Sorry,
now, you might see Bryce Rayner.
Big difference. My apologies.
You might get to see Bryce Rayner.
I might, yeah.
But that's the trajectory they're on. They're top prospects of this organization. They're awfully good. And if you're Pittsburgh, you get, now I got a shortstop and I got a center fielder of the future. Great to go with whatever else you have.
Yep.
And then these other two guys, there's prospects, right? Jaden Ham not having the year that he had last year, and Owen Hall is completely untested, throwing 9 innings throughout his minor league career. So you don't really know what you're getting there. You're hopeful with that. But the position players
you're getting an elite
feel pretty
pitcher.
Good.
Come on, sell it, Gator.
I'm not selling it because I don't buy the article.
I'm just messing with you.
And I understand what Bowden's doing. I mean, it's fun to do to see, okay, if they're not willing to, can I come up with something tantalizing enough that would make them say, yes, I would do it. And you're putting together a better deal than what Jim Bowden put together.
So, but the thing about it, maybe I'm overpaying, but the thing about it is maybe our takeaway from this should be, holy crap, Max Clark, Bryce Rayner, Jaden Ham, and Owen Hall must be great. Like we already heard about.
I feel pretty great about the first two.
Yeah. The third one's getting a lot of attention. The fourth one, just freshly on the radar. That's awesome. Maybe we should have a little bit more respect for who's in the minor leagues, that Jim Bowden thinks this is a deal that would make them say, we can't refuse that. I feel like I could refuse it if I were them, but
Right. Jaden Ham's pitching at Erie right now with a 4.42 earned run average in 38 innings.
Yeah.
So not what he was last year, but he still has promise.
Kang, any thoughts on this?
So I agree with you guys. This is fantasy talk, but since we're talking about it, and it's from a reputable writer, with a lot of connections in the league, it has to hurt from our end, right?
Yep.
Like it's got to really be like, that's a lot to give up. I'm gonna throw this out there since we're talking fantasy. Tarek Skubal for Paul Skenes. Now the reason I bring it up is because if you're not gonna pay Scoobs and Skenes is under club control for a lot more years, would you do that straight up?
Yes. But I mean,
If they, again, for
why
them,
would they?
Yeah, because they're going to go from not having to
Yeah.
pay a guy
Now-
for 5 years to not having to pay. I
Now-
like what you did
Yeah,
there.
I
You
know.
made me think.
I'm just trying to be like,
no,
all
you
right,
made me
it's-
think. You made me think for a second.
And
but-
then if they say, okay, well, we like that player, but we're gonna need something younger because we don't want to, if we don't want to pay Skubal either, if we can't afford him, we're gonna need Max Clark or whoever, right?
yeah.
Yeah, that's gonna hurt the Tigers. But then you get Skenes with club
Dude,
control.
it's what you do when you start to do this. You realize how hard it is to make the pieces fit for both teams.
Well, the Bowden proposal, which I think is ridiculous, but it's the Bowden proposal. It's one that the Tigers would do 100 times out of 100 because you're getting the guy who's going to contribute right here and now and make your rotation the best in baseball. And what have you given up? Future. You've given up nothing that hurts this team right now, nothing that hurts this team in 2026, and likely the first time you start feeling any kind of pain might be 2027 when Max Clark is ready to start playing Major League Baseball. So in the meantime, you're chasing World Series for the next couple of years. It would make all the sense in the world for the Tigers to do this trade. It makes no sense, or very little sense in my mind, for Pittsburgh to do that. Paul Skenes, that's a piece that you build around, particularly when you have him for the next 5 years before he enters free agency. Oh, hello.
There you go. The story's on The Athletic. Jim Bowden's the one who wrote it. It is Karsch and Anderson here on 97.1 The Ticket.